Hello everybody and welcome to a new edition of Post La Verdad Exeter interviews. This is our third edition. This is me, Diana Valencia. You can find me in Twitter at Diana_Val with V. Here speaking from the freezing all Christmas dressed Exeter in the southwest of the UK. And I apologize for my absence for these last couple of weeks when we had a gap with no interviews. Well, I wasn't entirely absent. I was more active with the main podcast in Spanish and my editorial about the Moorlands. But the thing is, we're here finishing our third term of the year and it's been crazy busy. So I apologize for this gap in my interviews. And anyway, here we are back to our interviews with a very, very special guest today. We have a celebrity of the Exeter arts. It's an amazing interview. I'm very happy and proud to present this interview to you today. And believe it or not, I was after this interview since the very opening day of BellHouse in the Exeter Library. So we will have an arts podcast, but we will talk not only about contemporary interactive arts, but how this had a deep meaning for science, research, music, immigrants, children, even climate change. But before we start with Rupert Johnstone and his BellHouse 2017, I want to say hi to at Post La Verdad in Colombia, to my mates Gelito Azul, Andrés Balaguera, who's the master of ideas and edition, to our Twitter influencer at Contragodarria, Javier. Welcome back to Twitterland. We're very happy because he has recovered his Twitter account. Big hi to a music genius at @_Ari in Twitter, to our logo designer at David_Ospina in Twitter, and to our Telegram group who help us to post and to distribute all Post La Verdad material and contents. So this is it. Post La Verdad in English. Exeter interviews are back, broadcasting from the beautiful Exeter, for Colombia, for Latin America, for the UK, for the planet, for the universe. Who knows who else is listening out there? So I give you Rupert Johnstone. Roop, enjoy.
La entrevista.
Okay, you're hearing the sound of BellHouse, and this is literally a little wooden house full of ceramic pots that work as bells connected to mini computers called Raspberry Pis. It's a wonderful piece of contemporary art, and today our special guest is the creator of this amazing masterpiece. Hello everybody, this is your host Diana Valencia. You can find me at Twitter at Diana_Va, and here with me is Rupert Johnstone.
Yes.
Roop,
Yeah. Hey.
creator of BellHouse 2017. So I will leave you to explain to us a little bit about yourself, please, and what is this amazing masterpiece called BellHouse?
Okay, so my name's Rupert Johnstone. I'm a potter, ceramicist, maker of things in clay. And I'm in Exeter Central Library at the moment and have been since the beginning of October with a piece that I've made called BellHouse, which is a interactive sound sculpture, which you can hear in the background. And it is basically 35 bells in a kind of open-sided house structure, which are operated by a motion capture device, which is currently working in another room, capturing the movement of a Raspberry Pi jam as we speak. So the motion capture system works by sensing RGB values through a video feed and taking that and sending that, if there's enough change, into to via a midpoint in the cloud to a Raspberry Pi on the sculpture, which operates all the servos. Yes, the sculpture essentially senses movement and then reacts in a kind of arbitrary fashion. And it was originally commissioned for a European climate science organisation called Euporias, which is it was a 4-year pan-European partnership on exploring how to use climate modelling to better make long-term weather predictions for government and infrastructure and so on. And what it was doing originally was capturing the non-verbal communication of climate scientists as they presented their information and turning that into the sound of bells. So the main thing, really, the main idea behind the piece is it's about communication and how we communicate and how we understand communication. So, in essence, what I was trying to do was to maybe not to show the scientists how their communication sounded in a different form, but maybe to raise the idea of how their communication is understood by somehow making it completely ununderstandable. In the sense that a lot of communication that we hear around the world is very specific because the language is very specific to the kind of work that's being done.
Jargon.
There's a lot of jargon. There's a lot of very specific words and a lot of implied knowledge in all of the kind of communication, especially with science communication, which makes it quite hard for anybody else to understand fully in that sense. And one of the main things that climate scientists really need to do is to be able to effectively communicate what they're saying to everybody so that we can change the way that we behave or do, alter our kind of behavior for our own good and for the good of everything, as it were. So really it's about playing with those kind of ideas.
Wow, never thought about it. I've been here this is the third time I'm here, and I never thought it was an actual message to scientists.
Well, that was initially its idea, but what we found quite quickly was that, and certainly in the library, is that because its main function is simply to respond to movement, that it can interact with anybody, and what we also found quite early on was that everyone has ideas about how it might do that interaction. So people would come up and go, "Oh, you could do this with it, or you could try that." And so, in a sense, it's like a magnet for lots of different ideas, and also like the contributions of other people. And I really like the fact that as people have come into contact with it, they've begun to think about ways to use it. And so, as much as possible in the 6 weeks it's been at the library, I've encouraged people to come with ideas about how they might want to make BellHouse work. And when in the Met Office originally, the most interesting thing that happened was that because BellHouse will play any visual information, so you can play video through it, the Met Office scientists were bringing weather animations, videos of the summer of 1976, which was like a 3-month animation of the weather over Northern Europe in a very dry year. Arctic weather in 1912 to 1914 using lost weather data. Ash plumes from Mount Etna, like forecasts of where it would go and so on and so forth, and observe results. But what was interesting was that often they would come down with their information and listen to the sound of their visual data and then start talking about what that sounded like, and then think, and you could see them thinking about it, and then a few of them came back couple of days later and had the same data but presented differently visually to play that through and see how that sounded. And so that was really interesting because in a sense they were creating their own artwork and playing around with their data and being creative. And that was really fun. And so in a sense that's what I hoped might begin to occur this time.
Yeah. Well, my personal experience when I saw it for the first time is, I went to the computer, there was a camera over there, and I thought, as a Latin person, we love to dance.
Yeah.
We dance to the music, so I started to dance salsa in front of the camera. But it was like a reverse thing, reverse communication, because you dance to music, but this time was music to the dance.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know, I found it really like a fun thing to do. And
It's great.
the
A few
interest
people
in
have
the
done
concept.
that. A few people have. It's like spontaneously danced in front of it, and lots of children. It's just kind of crazy moving.
Yeah, I was about to say that, like, particularly for children, because you see children get really bored in galleries. You can't touch, you can't go further than the line. But this particular piece of art has been, I don't know, a success among children.
Yeah. The kids, they tend to just jump around and like move about and then see how they can make a BellHouse work. And on a really basic level, that's fantastic. And so it seems to have been able to engage like all ages and different backgrounds as well, which has been really nice to see. And from like, high level research kind of programs to kids, just playing and and that's really nice. It's kind of in some ways he's got something for everyone, which is great. And people have like you have come and danced in front of it, and I'm hoping that we can do that in a more structured way. So I've been talking to a few people about how we might make that happen, so that they can come and do like choreograph and use that relationship between, in a sense, creating the music from the dance rather than dancing to the music, to explore a different way to
You've
create.
created something so huge and magnificent. And you've had different activities here around the BellHouse. So I've seen the Code Club, but I saw on your Twitter that there was a sort of Chinese
tea ceremony. Yeah. So we tried to encourage people to come with things to do, but until you've seen how it works, it's kind of often difficult to do that. So we've organised a couple of strands of discussion based on the idea that, in a sense, we wanted to get researchers to the BellHouse to think about how they might present their research in a different way. And so we organised a discussion thread with the University of Exeter Geography Department about migration, and talking about, working with a couple of researchers from the university, one called Jen Bagelman and the other's called Amanda Schmidt-Scott, and they work particularly with the politics of sanctuary and the idea of sanctuary cities and detention, essentially, and the politics of asylum and detention, and so we've begun a couple of discussions, and actually the tea ceremony came out of that, in the sense that somebody who came to one of those initial talks then said, can I come and do a tea ceremony in front of it? And obviously she being Chinese, that was kind of culturally relevant. Also, it seemed like an interesting other way to explore that idea of migration, in the sense that how we bring our own cultural practices to different places, and then how we all learn from those different cultural practices. So that was really lovely, and it was a wonderful spectacle. So you just sat in front of the BellHouse and did the tea ceremony, and it sounded beautiful, and it was a very kind of special occasion. Actually, it was lovely. Yeah. And so we've done that, and we're also talking about dementia and the way that sound might be a way, or have a role in either in the care of dementia, or exploring the relationships between the patients and the carers and the kind of care system, in a sense, to explore how that might work, and how we can kind of bring all of, maybe not necessarily, it's a bit ambitious to say bring it all together, but how we might explore the connections and how people might suppose not. It's too much to. It's a bit ambitious to say might improve their lives, but in a sense might enjoy the BellHouse and use it as some sort of therapeutic tool for everybody within that kind of system, not just the sufferers of dementia themselves. So yeah, there's lots of possibilities. It's a really big idea, but I found that often the big ideas then kind of filter down into specific instances of things that might happen and events and moments which you can pick out, and those are nice, lovely kind of that have meaning and so on. Yeah.
I might be wrong, but I got the feeling that arts and contemporary arts today is something no longer just hanging on the walls, but more interacting with people. You've created here something that researchers and scientists and common people and kids can feel related to and get involved and bring it to their own lives and disciplines. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you think that art, it's changing, it's getting to more people, it's like inviting more people to touch, to come to create.
Yeah, I'm interested in that idea. I don't know if it's happening across the board, but what I think is that I've always been interested in the connections between art and science and technology and so on and so forth. But I think possibly there's a kind of strand of art practice which is about that kind of somewhere in the grey area between visual arts and performance and technology and science, and in a sense what I've always been interested in, my personal I can't kind of put my opinions out to whatever anybody else is doing, but I've always been interested in art, the experience of art not only being just a visual experience, but a tactile, a multi-sensory experience. And I'm not a theatre practitioner or anything like that, but as a craftsperson, as a person who makes pots, when you drink a cup of tea that I've made, if I made the cup, then you can enjoy the beauty of the cup itself. If you like it, that's great. But also you get an enjoyment from the action of using the cup, from touching it, from tasting the material that comes out of it and so on. And people have always said to me, like, that's what I really like about, your pot, is it feels nice and it's, it has a particular relationship to me and in a particular ritual. And, so I drink my tea out of it on Saturday mornings or whatever it might be. And that's really lovely. And it does make me think, that actually the way that we understand art doesn't have to just be a visual kind of decoding.
Now I want to make my own coffee cup.
Yeah, well, no, but it's true. It's kind of like,
it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so, and that's just in that kind of craft basis. But with this, so in a sense, I've for a long time, we've been interested in the idea that in some way, as the audience member to a piece of art, that you have some role in the creation of whatever happens, of your experience of it, so that you have to interact with it in some way. Or you don't have to, but you can interact with it in some way. And then you can then also maybe begin to create your own artwork out of the artwork. And that's quite exciting for me. That's what I'm kind of interested in.
Thank you so much, Roop. That was lovely. So finally, do you know any words in Spanish, perhaps, so that you can share greetings with us to Latin America, Colombia, the rest of the world?
Oh, no. So my Spanish is really bad. I once worked on a vineyard in Spain, in a place called Rueda. So my Spanish that I learnt was entirely about wine and all swear words. So I can't repeat any of those. Oh gosh, and sandwich. I'm trying to remember what the word for sandwich was. Bocadillo. So, yeah. There you go. So I'm really sorry. I'm trying to think. I can only say really corny things like Happy Christmas.
Say Happy Christmas.
Say Feliz Navidad.
Oh,
yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's amazing. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It was
Thank you.
lovely.
Yeah. That's awesome.